So we've examined error trapping and how we can catch an error and do something with it. There are times, however, when things aren't that simple and it's just not an error that occurs, but what you're expecting to happen isn't happening. When that becomes the case, we need to look at different methods of debugging your code. Now, the easiest way to debug your code is to actually go to the code, read through it, and see if you can spot anything that's wrong. Invariably, that doesn't prove very useful, but it is helpful for you to follow the logic through, look at all the ifs, look at all the loops, and find out where you're heading at any point. There are, however, two other useful little options for us to carry out when debugging, and that is to actually get the code to write out to the screen current value of variables. Now, we can do that in one of two ways. We can either use the message box function so that the value is written out while the application is running, or we can use a special debug.print option where it only writes the result in the VBA editor. So therefore, when you're in Excel, you cannot see what's happening. So if we take the debug output file that's in your working folder, it has the cube routine within it and the same keyboard shortcut to activate it. So if we were to select a range of cells, Ctrl-Shift-Y, it would calculate the cube root of those cell values. Now, if we weren't happy with the values that were coming out, or we're not quite trusting of them, that's where we could debug. Go into the Visual Basic. Here's our little loop that's doing the work, and we simply use the message box statement. Let's use it before and after. Output the value before it gets changed. So message box pre-calc value. Don't forget to actually output the pre-calc value. And then after it's got changed, we'll do the same thing. MSG box, but this is the post-calc value. And we'll output X again. Then when we go back into our cells, we highlight patch, Ctrl-Shift-Y, pre-calc value 64, so that's that one there. Okay, that calculates to a 4. 57 comes down to 3.8485011312768, which actually displays a lot shorter in the Excel. Pre-calc 67, post 4.061, pre-calc 90, 4.48, pre-calc 78, post-calc 4.27, etc. End. So by simply adding in MSG box, we can actually output the value of whatever variable we're worried about or dealing with into the screen, into Excel, while you're actually calling this procedure. Obviously, once your routine is fixed and working and about to be released, you delete these two lines, or at least comment them out. So then you can keep them if you need to go back and re-debug if someone's not quite agreeing with the calculation that takes place. An alternative to using the message box is to use a debug object. So we can go before the X and say debug.print, and we'd like it to print the value of X, and the same after debug.print and the value of X again. Now, if you wanted to output the value of a variety of variables, you would simply separate them by commas. So we could say debug.print X, Y, K, string, whatever we're outputting. So let's see what happens in this case. We go back into Excel, we highlight a number of cells, and we run our routine. Everything works, it calculates the same cube roots. Nothing appears to have changed. When we go back into the Visual Basic, you'll see down here in your immediate window are the output results. Just resize that a little bit. So as it's gone down the list, there's the first X value, there's the second, so that's the before and after, before, after, before, after, before, after, before, after. That's where your debug.print outputs to. It therefore doesn't affect the running of the code within Excel. You don't keep getting these message boxes that you have to keep saying OK to. It just outputs all the values into the immediate window. So you can come in after the code is executed and check what's been written into the immediate window. Now, although it's not usual, you can use the debug.print to output text values that effectively act as labels into your immediate window. So instead of just putting debug.print X, we could put pre-value and post value. Pretty similar to what we did with the message box. Back into Excel, let's take those patched there, and then they get written out into the immediate window. So everything gets written into here. If your immediate window is not visible, then it's activated from the View menu, View, Immediate Window, or Control G. So I can turn it off here by closing it, turn it back on by View, Immediate Window, and it will appear. Don't forget that this immediate window will just fill up, and it's worth clearing every now and again. Just select everything in there and delete. So this is a couple of ways of debugging your code. One is to meticulously go very slowly through each step to make sure that everything is written correctly. And then we have two options for outputting values or messages at certain points. Using the message box if you want the output to go into Excel. Using the debug if you want the code to quite happily execute, but write out values and statements into the immediate window that you can then look at once you've run a routine.